Kang Dae-hyun checked his equipment for the third time that morning. The small black box hummed quietly on his belt, generating an invisible shield around the human delegation. His job was simple but critical: keep alien telepaths out of human minds. The Sci shield had never failed before. At least, that's what he believed until he met Prince Violet. The Meridian Dawn had traveled for 6 months to reach Vethera Prime, Earth's first diplomatic mission to the Galactic Consortium. 12 alien civilizations controlled everything in known space: trade routes, technology licenses, territorial rights. Humanity wanted in. They needed in. Earth's resources were running thin, and the technology gap was growing dangerous. Dae-hyun watched Ambassador Yu Hana prepare her notes in the shuttle bay. She was a sharp woman, her gray hair pulled back severely, her eyes calculating every angle. She had spent 20 years preparing for this moment. Behind her, Commander Shin Woo-bin checked weapons that would hopefully never be used. The commander trusted no one who wasn't human. "Remember," Ambassador Yu said to the team, "we show strength but not aggression, confidence but not arrogance. And Dae-hyun, those shields stay active every second." "Yes, Ambassador," Dae-hyun replied. He tapped the black box again. Green lights. All systems normal. The shuttle descended through Vethera Prime's pink atmosphere. The planet was beautiful: floating crystal structures, gardens that defied gravity, waterfalls that flowed upward. The consortium had built their capital here precisely because it was so impressive. First impressions mattered. The welcoming ceremony took place in an enormous courtyard made of glass that seemed to shift colors. Representatives from all 12 species stood in a semicircle. Dae-hyun recognized them from his briefings: the mantis-like Thrasic with their compound eyes, the floating Morlians who existed partly in another dimension, the elegant Velans with their luminescent skin patterns that flickered like living light shows. And in the center, Prince Villith of House Sharan. He looked almost human. 2 arms, 2 legs, a face with recognizable features. But his skin glowed with soft blue light that pulsed in patterns Dae-hyun couldn't quite follow. His eyes were completely black, like polished stones. When he smiled at the arriving humans, it seemed warm and genuine. "Welcome to Vethera Prime," Prince Villith said in perfect English. "We have waited long to meet Earth's representatives." Ambassador Yu bowed slightly, the gesture calculated to show respect without submission. "We are honored by your invitation, Prince Villith. Earth looks forward to joining the consortium." The formal speeches began. Dae-hyun stood to the side with the other technical staff, monitoring his equipment. Everything was working perfectly. The PSI shield created a bubble around each human, blocking telepathic intrusion. The Velans were known as the most powerful telepaths in the galaxy. Without protection, they could read surface thoughts as easily as reading a book. But something felt wrong. Dae-hyun's job required him to think clearly and analytically. He had to monitor the shield strength while also paying attention to the political situation. As the speeches droned on, his mind worked through the implications of what he was hearing. "They're stalling," he thought to himself. "Look at how Prince Violet keeps redirecting to minor topics. They want us desperate, willing to accept bad terms just to get in." The moment the thought formed, Prince Violet's eyes flickered toward Dae-hyun. The prince's smile widened just slightly. Then, as if responding to Dae-hyun's internal observation, Prince Violet smoothly shifted his speech toward more substantial topics. Dae-hyun's blood went cold. He checked his equipment again. Green lights. The shield was working perfectly. It had to be coincidence. The ceremony moved to a banquet hall where floating tables served food from a dozen worlds. Dae-hyun tried to stay focused on his job, but he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Several times during the meal, he caught Prince Violet glancing in his direction with that same knowing smile. He decided to test his suspicion. "The ambassador's necklace is ugly," Dae-hyun thought deliberately, looking at the ceremonial jewelry Yu Hana wore. "It looks like something a child made." Prince Villith, who was speaking with a Thrasic counselor, suddenly chuckled. He glanced at Ambassador Yu's necklace, then at Dae-hyun, his expression amused. "No, it couldn't be possible." Dae-hyun's hands were shaking now. He carefully thought another test. Commander Shin has his weapon set to level 5. That's against protocol for diplomatic meetings. Prince Violet's eyes moved to Commander Shin's hip, where the weapon was concealed. The prince's expression shifted to something more serious. He made a subtle hand gesture to his own guards, who visibly relaxed their stance. The prince was responding to Daehyun's thoughts, directly, specifically, despite the shields that were supposed to make that impossible. Daehyun forced himself to breathe slowly. He needed to tell Ambassador Yu, but not here, not where the prince could hear his plans. He carefully kept his thoughts on neutral topics: the taste of the food, the architecture of the room, mathematical equations from his engineering training. The banquet ended after 3 hours. The human delegation was escorted to their quarters in a beautiful tower overlooking the city. The moment the doors closed, Daehyun pulled Ambassador Yu and Commander Shin aside. "We have a problem," he said quietly. "I think Prince Violet can read my thoughts despite the shields." Commander Shin's hand moved to his weapon. "That's impossible. Those shields have been tested against the best telepaths we could find." "I know," Daehyun said, "but I tested it. Multiple times." He responds to my specific thoughts. Things I didn't say out loud, things no one could guess. Ambassador Yu's face went pale. If he can read through the shields, then every strategy session, every private thought I've had about our negotiating position. She sat down heavily. "We've already lost. He knows everything." "We don't know that for certain," Commander Shin said, but his voice lacked conviction. Daehyun spent the rest of the day running diagnostics. The equipment worked perfectly. He called Earth, using quantum-encrypted channels. The scientists there confirmed the shields were operating exactly as designed. There was no malfunction. That evening, Daehyun couldn't sleep. He stood on the balcony of his room, looking out at the alien city. His mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Daehyun spun around. Prince Velith stood in the doorway to the balcony. He hadn't made a sound approaching. The prince held up his hands in a peaceful gesture. "I'm sorry to intrude," Prince Velith said, "but we need to talk, you and I." "How did you get in here?" Daehyun demanded. "I'm a prince. Doors open for me." Velith stepped onto the balcony. "But that's not what you really want to ask me, is it?" Daehyun carefully controlled his thoughts. He focused on the city lights, counting them, trying not to think about anything important. Prince Velith laughed softly. "You're trying very hard not to think right now. It's admirable. But I should be honest with you, Technician Kang. Your shields work wonderfully. They would stop any Velen telepath. They would stop 100 Velen telepaths working together. But not you," Daehyun said quietly. "But not me," Velith confirmed. He moved to stand beside Daehyun, looking out at the city. "I have a mutation. Even among my people, I'm unusual. I can hear what we call the deep thoughts. The internal voice that runs constantly in your mind. Most telepaths can only read surface thoughts, the things you're actively thinking about in the moment. But I hear the deeper layer, the running commentary you have with yourself." Daehyun felt sick. "Everything?" "Everything," Velith said. "Your shields block the surface layer perfectly. But that deeper voice, that constant stream of observations and reactions, those shields can't touch it. Most species don't even have that kind of internal monologue. But humans do. You narrate your own lives inside your heads constantly. And I hear every word." "Why are you telling me this?" Daehyun asked. Prince Velith was quiet for a moment. "Because I'm tired of being a spy. And because I think humanity might offer me something I've wanted my entire life." "What's that?" "Silence," the prince said softly. "But we'll discuss that later. For now, you have a choice to make, Technician Kang. You can tell your ambassador what I've revealed. She'll panic, you'll withdraw from negotiations, and Earth will return home having failed. Or you can work with me. Help me guide your delegation toward terms that actually benefit both our peoples. I'll share information about the other council members. In exchange, you help me understand humanity better." Prince Velith turned to face Daehyun directly. "Your ambassador's entire strategy is already compromised. I've heard every planning session in her head. But that doesn't mean humanity has to lose. Daehyun's mind raced. Every instinct said not to trust an alien who admitted to spying on them. But Prince Villith was right about one thing. If he'd heard Ambassador Yu's thoughts, the negotiations were already compromised. I need to think about this, Daehyun said. Prince Villith smiled. Of course. Think carefully, Technician Kang. I'll hear every thought anyway, but I hope you'll choose to work with me rather than against me. The prince left as silently as he'd arrived. Daehyun stood on the balcony for a long time, staring at the alien city and trying desperately to figure out what to do next. He carefully thought, stay calm, don't panic, find a solution. Somewhere in the city, he knew Prince Villith heard those words clearly, and the prince was smiling. Daehyun didn't sleep that night. By morning, he had made his decision. He couldn't hide this from Ambassador Yu, no matter what Prince Villith wanted. The fate of Earth was too important. He called an emergency meeting in the most secure room they had, a sealed chamber with triple-layered walls that blocked all signals. Ambassador Yu arrived looking tired. Commander Shin came armed, as always. Daehyun had also requested Dr. Choi Bora, the team's neurologist and consciousness specialist. This better be important, Ambassador Yu said as she entered. We have our first real negotiation session in 3 hours. Daehyun explained everything. Prince Villith's visit, his admission about reading deep thoughts, the fact that the shields couldn't stop him. With every word, Ambassador Yu's expression darkened. So, every thought I've had about our strategy, our bottom lines, our secrets, he knows it all? She looked like she might be sick. Yes, Daehyun said quietly. Commander Shin slammed his fist on the table. We withdraw immediately, go back to Earth, build better defenses. And admit failure? Ambassador Yu shook her head. Earth needs this alliance. Our resources are running out. If we leave now, the consortium might never invite us back. Then we negotiate knowing we're compromised, Shin said. At least we won't be walking in blind. Dr. Choi Bora had been quiet until now. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. Wait, she said. Let me understand this correctly. Prince Villith can hear the internal monologue, the voice in our heads that talks to itself constantly? That's what he said, Daehyun confirmed. And our shields block normal telepathy, just not this deeper level? Correct. Dr. Choi's eyes lit up. Then we might actually have an advantage. Everyone stared at her. Explain, Ambassador Yu demanded. Dr. Choi pulled up a holographic display showing brain scans. Human consciousness is unique. We didn't evolve with telepathy, so our minds developed differently. We have multiple layers of thought happening simultaneously. Surface thoughts, deep thoughts, unconscious processing, emotional responses, all separate but interconnected. How does that help us? Shin asked. Because humans are exceptionally good at lying to themselves, Dr. Choi said. We hold contradictory beliefs. We convince ourselves of things that aren't true. We imagine scenarios so vividly that we half believe them, even though we know they're fiction. Telepathic species can't do this. Their minds evolve for honesty and clarity because lying is impossible when everyone can read your thoughts. Daehyun began to understand. You're saying we could train ourselves to think in layers? Create false thoughts that even we believe? Exactly, Dr. Choi said. If Prince Villith is listening to that deep internal voice, we need to make that voice lie. Not consciously, that wouldn't work. But we can train ourselves to partition our consciousness, hold real strategy in one part of our minds while letting false thoughts flow through the verbal layer he's listening to. Ambassador Yu looked skeptical. Is that even possible? Humans do it all the time without realizing it, Dr. Choi explained. When you rehearse a conversation in your head, you're simulating both sides so convincingly that your emotions respond as if it's real. When you read fiction, you temporarily believe in the story. When you lie to others, you often convince yourself first. We just need to do it deliberately and with control. How long would this take to learn? Ambassador Yu asked. I don't know, Dr. Choi admitted. Days? Weeks? But Daehyun needs to start immediately. He's the one Prince Villith is focused on. For the next 2 days, Daehyun underwent the strangest training of his life. Dr. Choi taught him meditation techniques combined with deliberate self-deception. He practiced thinking about mundane topics while his deeper mind processed real information. He rehearsed false memories until they felt real. He learned to split his attention so completely that his internal monologue could run on autopilot, saying nothing important. It was exhausting. His head ached constantly. But slowly, it started to work. Meanwhile, negotiations began. Ambassador Yu met with the Consortium Council to discuss Earth's admission terms. Daehyun attended as part of the technical team, monitoring equipment and trying his new mental techniques. Prince Violet was always there, watching with those black eyes. Sometimes he smiled at Daehyun, sometimes he looked confused. Daehyun couldn't tell if the training was working or if the prince was just playing games. On the third day, Prince Violet approached Daehyun during a break in the session. They stood in a corridor lined with windows showing the alien city below. "Your thoughts have become strange," the prince said without preamble. "Yesterday, you were thinking about cooking noodles for 20 minutes straight during a critical discussion about mining rights. Today, you've been mentally reciting multiplication tables." Daehyun kept his internal voice carefully neutral. He thought about the weather on Earth, the color of the sky, the taste of coffee. "I don't know what you mean, Prince Violet." "Yes, you do," Vilith said, but he sounded uncertain. "You're doing something, hiding something. But I can't tell what because your thoughts are becoming fractured, incoherent. Maybe you're just hearing what humans actually think like," Daehyun suggested. "Maybe our minds are naturally chaotic to you." Prince Vilith studied him. "Perhaps. But I've read thousands of human thoughts over the past few days from your delegation. None of them are like yours. You're different now." Before Daehyun could respond, Ambassador Yu emerged from the council chamber looking frustrated. "They're demanding resource surveys of our entire solar system before agreeing to anything. They want to know exactly what we have before they decide on terms." "That's standard," Prince Vilith said. "Every new species undergoes evaluation." "It feels like we're being picked apart," Yu said. That evening, Daehyun received another unexpected visitor. This time it was Prince Vilith again, but he seemed different. Less confident, almost vulnerable. "I need your help," the prince said, sitting down without being invited. "Not with negotiations, with something personal." Daehyun waited. "I've been able to hear deep thoughts since I was a child," Vilith explained. "At first my family thought it was wonderful, a powerful gift, but they didn't understand what it means to hear everything. Every lie, every cruel thought, every moment of doubt or hate or fear. I can't turn it off. Ever." "That sounds difficult," Daehyun said carefully. "Difficult?" Vilith laughed bitterly. "It's torture. I've never had a genuine relationship. I've never had privacy. Not even in my own mind because I'm so aware of everyone else's thoughts that I can't separate my own. I've been alone my entire life, surrounded by voices I can't silence. Why are you telling me this?" "Because for the first time in my life, I'm experiencing something I've never felt before. When I try to read your thoughts now, I get static, confusion, emptiness." Prince Violet looked directly at Daehyun. "And it's the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced." Daehyun understood. "You want to learn how to do what I'm doing, how to partition your thoughts, how to create silence in your own mind." "Yes," Vilith said quietly. "I want to know what it's like to not know, to be uncertain, to have privacy inside my own head." "Why would I help you?" Daehyun asked. "You're spying on us." "Because I'll help you in return," Vilith said. "I'll tell you what the other council members are really thinking. I'll guide you through the negotiations. I'll make sure Earth gets fair terms instead of the trap they're planning." "Trap?" Prince Vilith nodded. "Several council members want to accept Earth, but only as a subordinate power. They're planning to offer you membership with conditions that would essentially make you a protectorate. You'd have to host consortium military bases, give up resource rights, accept their technology licenses instead of developing your own. It would look like membership but function like occupation." Daehyun felt cold. "Ambassador Yu suspects something like this, but she has no proof." "I'm giving you proof," Vilith said. "Help me learn to silence my own thoughts, and I'll make sure humanity gets a real chance. I need to discuss this with Dr. Choi, Daehyun said. Of course, but decide quickly. The council is planning to announce the terms in 4 days. Once they're public, changing them will be nearly impossible. After Prince Velith left, Daehyun immediately briefed Dr. Choi and Ambassador Yu. They argued for hours about whether to trust the alien prince. He could be lying, Commander Shin insisted. He could be, Dr. Choi agreed. But consider what he's offering. If he can really teach us what the other council members are thinking, we'd have a huge advantage. And if we can teach him to control his telepathy, Ambassador Yu added slowly, we'd prove that humans have something valuable to offer the consortium, a unique ability they don't have. The next morning, Dr. Choi began working with Prince Velith. She taught him the same techniques she'd taught Daehyun: meditation, mental partitioning, controlled attention splitting. The prince was a fast learner. After just 2 sessions, something remarkable happened. Prince Velith sat in meditation, and for the first time in his life, he achieved 30 seconds of complete mental silence. No voices, no intrusive thoughts, no overwhelming flood of information from other minds. When he opened his eyes, tears were running down his luminescent face. "I didn't hear anything," he whispered. "For 30 seconds I was alone with myself. Just me. Just silence." Dr. Choi smiled. "That's just the beginning. With practice, you'll be able to control it. Turn the telepathy on and off as you need." "This is impossible," Prince Velith said. "My people have tried for generations to find ways to block telepathy, but you did it in 2 days." "Because we think differently," Dr. Choi explained. "Your species evolved with telepathy, so your minds are built to broadcast and receive. Human minds are built for isolation. We had to learn to communicate across that isolation. That gives us tools you never needed to develop." Prince Velith looked at Daehyun. "Your species is strange and wonderful, and I think I finally understand why the consortium should accept you." "Will they?" Daehyun asked. The prince's expression darkened. "Not without a fight. In 2 days, the council will announce their decision, and I've heard their thoughts. They're planning to reject you." The announcement came the next morning. The Consortium Council declared that before making a final decision on Earth's membership, humanity would undergo the trial of worthiness. It was an ancient tradition, barely used in modern times. The human delegation was escorted to the Grand Amphitheater, a massive structure made of crystal that amplified sound and light in ways that hurt human eyes. Thousands of aliens filled the seats, not just the 12 council species, but visitors from across the consortium. This was entertainment for them, a chance to see the new species either prove themselves or fail publicly. High Magistrate Corvin, the mantis-like leader of the Thracic Collective, explained the trial in a voice that clicked and buzzed. Translators converted it to English. "Every species that joins the consortium must demonstrate a unique quality, something no other member species possesses. This ensures diversity of thought and capability within our alliance." Ambassador Yu stood in the center of the amphitheater, looking small and very human among the alien architecture. "What kind of quality?" "That is for you to propose and prove," Corvin said. "You have 1 hour to confer with your delegation. Then you will present your claim." The humans were led to a private chamber. The moment the door closed, panic set in. "This is impossible," Commander Shin said. "Every quality has already been claimed. The Velans have telepathy, the Morlians have dimensional phasing, the Thracic have hive mind coordination. What could we possibly have that's unique?" Ambassador Yu looked at Daehyun. "You've been working with Prince Velith. What does he suggest?" "He warned me this was coming," Daehyun admitted. "He said the trial is designed to fail. They've already decided to reject us. This is just the formal justification. Then we're finished," Yu said quietly. "No," Dr. Choi interrupted. She had been thinking, pacing the small room. "We have something none of them have. We just demonstrated it with Prince Velith." "What?" Shin asked. "The ability to lie to ourselves so convincingly that even telepaths believe it," Dr. Choi said. "We can hold false beliefs, imagine impossible scenarios, and make our own consciousness accept them as temporarily real. No telepathic species can do this. They evolved with mental honesty. They can't deceive themselves effectively. How does that help us pass the trial? Ambassador Yu asked. We demonstrate it, Dr. Choi said. Daehyun volunteers to deceive Prince Violet, the most powerful telepath in the consortium. If he can make Violet believe something false just through thought, we prove that humans have a unique cognitive ability. Lee Ji-won, the young xenolinguist, spoke up. It's risky. If we fail, we look foolish. If we succeed, we prove we can't be trusted. We're going to fail anyway, Daehyun said. At least this gives us a chance. Ambassador Yu made the decision. We do it. Daehyun, you're sure you can pull this off? Dr. Choi has been training me for days, Daehyun said. I can make myself believe almost anything if I focus. Whether Prince Violet will fall for it? I don't know. It's our only option, Yu said. Let's go. They returned to the amphitheater. The alien crowd buzzed with anticipation. Ambassador Yu walked to the center and addressed the council. Humanity claims the unique ability of constructive self-deception, she announced. We can hold beliefs so convincingly that even we accept them as real, despite knowing they're false. We can imagine scenarios that don't exist with such detail that our consciousness treats them as memories. This cognitive flexibility allows for unprecedented creativity, strategic thinking, and problem-solving. Murmurs rippled through the audience. High Magistrate Corvin leaned forward. This claim is unusual. How do you propose to demonstrate it? Technician Kong Daehyun will attempt to deceive Prince Velith using only his thoughts, Ambassador Yu said. If the prince, who can read the deepest layer of consciousness, believes the false thoughts, we will have proven our claim. The council conferred briefly. Prince Velith stood up from his position in the Velen delegation. I accept this challenge, he said. But I must warn you. I will hear not just surface thoughts but the deep truth beneath them. Deception is impossible against my abilities. That's what makes this a fair test, Dr. Choi said, stepping forward. If anyone can detect deception, it's you, Prince Violet. The test was arranged. Daehyun and Prince Vilith stood facing each other in the center of the amphitheater. Massive screens projected what the prince heard, translated into text that all species could understand. Begin, High Magistrate Corvin commanded. Daehyun closed his eyes and focused. Dr. Choi had taught him to build false memories by layering details until they felt real. He started with something simple. He imagined being on Mars. Not just imagined. He constructed a memory of it. The red dust beneath his boots. The thin atmosphere making every breath feel insufficient. The curve of the horizon, so much closer than on Earth. He built in emotions, excitement at the discovery, fear that his oxygen might fail, wonder at the alien landscape. Then he added the artifact. A small metallic sphere, half buried in Martian soil. He remembered digging it out with gloved hands. The weight of it. The strange warmth it radiated despite the cold Martian surface. He believed it. For those moments, Daehyun genuinely believed he had been to Mars and found an ancient alien artifact. On the screens, Prince Vilith's interpretation appeared. He remembers Mars. The artifact was warm in his hands. He believes he found something important. The crowd murmured. Prince Velith looked confused. This is... You really believe this? I hear it clearly. You found an artifact on Mars. Yes, Daehyun said aloud, still holding the false memory. Then he shifted. He released the Mars memory and constructed a new one. Same artifact, but this time he found it on Earth's moon. Different landscape, gray dust instead of red. Different emotions, less fear because Earth was close, but the same level of conviction. Now he remembers finding it on the moon, Prince Velith said, reading the new memory. But wait. The prince's expression shifted to confusion. Both memories feel real. How can both be real? Daehyun opened his eyes and shifted again. Antarctica. The artifact was buried in ice. He remembered the cold, the sound of the drilling equipment, the moment when they broke through to the metallic sphere. Antarctica now, Prince Vilith said, his voice strained. But the previous memories haven't faded. They all feel equally true. This is… I don't understand. How can you believe three contradictory things simultaneously? Because humans can, Dr. Choi explained to the council. We can simulate multiple realities in our minds. We can believe in all of them and none of them at the same time. Our consciousness doesn't require singular truth the way telepathic species do. Daehyun pushed further. He cycled through 10 different scenarios, each one complete with sensory details and emotional conviction. Finding the artifact in the ocean, in a forest, in a desert, in his childhood home. Each memory felt real while he held it. Prince Velith staggered backward. Stop, please. Your thoughts are overwhelming. Every memory is sincere but contradictory. I can't tell what's real. This shouldn't be possible. Daehyun released all the false memories and returned to his actual thoughts. He thought clearly. None of those were real. I made them all up, but while I was thinking them, I believed them completely. The amphitheater was silent. Prince Velith looked shaken. He's telling the truth now. He fabricated all of it. But each fabrication was genuine belief. I've never experienced anything like this. High Magistrate Corvin stood up. Explain the significance of this ability. Dr. Choi stepped forward. Telepathic species evolved with mental transparency. Lying to others means lying to yourself, which is cognitively expensive and usually fails. So your civilizations developed around honesty and clear communication. This is efficient but limiting. Humans evolved without telepathy, she continued. We had to develop complex language and abstract thinking to communicate across the barrier of isolated minds. This isolation forced us to become expert simulators. We imagine what others think. We rehearse conversations that never happen. We create elaborate fictions and immerse ourselves in them. We can genuinely believe things we know aren't true because that flexibility serves creativity and problem-solving. This makes us unpredictable, Ambassador Yu added. But it also makes us valuable. We can think thoughts that telepaths can't. We can explore ideas that seem impossible. We can hold contradictory hypotheses and test them simultaneously. Our cognitive chaos is a tool, not a weakness. The council members conferred. The alien audience buzzed with discussion. Finally, High Magistrate Corvin spoke. The ability has been demonstrated. It is indeed unique. But the council must now debate whether this uniqueness makes humanity worthy of membership or dangerous to the consortium's stability. Dangerous? Ambassador Yu asked. Yes, Corvin said. You have proven you can deceive even the most powerful telepaths. You can hide your true intentions behind false beliefs. This makes you inherently untrustworthy. Many council members now question whether humans should be allowed into the consortium at all. Prince Velith looked stricken. He whispered to Daehyun, "This was my fear. You proved you're unique, but now they see you as a threat." The council called a recess to debate. The human delegation was escorted back to their quarters. The mood was grim. We showed them something amazing and they're scared of it, Commander Shin said bitterly. They should be scared, Lee Ji-won said quietly. We just proved we can lie our way through any negotiation. We can make false promises while believing them ourselves. Why would anyone trust us? Ambassador Yu sat down heavily. We may have just destroyed Earth's chances. Dr. Choi shook her head. No. We proved we're valuable. We just need to reframe the narrative. Make them see why they need our cognitive chaos, not why they should fear it. How? Daehyun asked. I don't know yet, Dr. Choi admitted, but we have until tomorrow to figure it out. The council votes then. That night, Prince Velith came to see Daehyun one last time. The prince looked tired, his luminescent skin dim. I tried to help, Velith said, but I think I made things worse. The other council members are angry that I participated in your demonstration. They say I was manipulated by your deceptive thoughts. Were you? Daehyun asked. Prince Velith smiled sadly. No, I participated because I wanted to. Because you showed me something beautiful, the possibility of uncertainty. But my people don't understand that. They see it as weakness. What happens tomorrow? Tomorrow they vote. and I've heard their thoughts. Prince Velith looked directly at Daehyun. They're going to reject you. I'm sorry. The rejection seemed certain. The human delegation spent the night in emergency sessions, trying to find a way to change the consortium's mind. Ambassador Yu drafted 7 different speeches. Commander Shin prepared evacuation protocols. Dr. Choi ran simulations of different arguments they could make. Nothing felt like enough. At dawn, Park Hyunwoo requested an urgent meeting. He was the delegation's intelligence officer, a quiet man who spent most of his time monitoring communications and analyzing patterns. Daehyun had barely spoken to him during the entire mission. I found something, Hyunwoo said, spreading holographic data across the table. I've been intercepting consortium communications for weeks. Most of it is encrypted beyond our ability to break, but I caught fragments, enough to piece together a pattern. What kind of pattern? Ambassador Yu asked. A conspiracy, Hyunwoo said. Multiple council species have been coordinating their positions on Earth's admission. Not just discussing, actively planning a specific outcome. They want us in the consortium, but only under conditions that would give them control over Earth's resources and development. Commander Shin leaned forward. You mean the trap Prince Velith warned us about? Worse than that, Hyunwoo said. He pulled up more data. The trial wasn't just about finding a reason to reject us. It was about exposing our capabilities so they could better understand how to control us. They wanted to see what makes humans unique so they could develop countermeasures. That's why they seemed scared after the demonstration, Dr. Choi said slowly. They weren't genuinely afraid of our abilities. They were playing a role, setting up justification for either rejecting us or offering us limited membership with heavy restrictions. Ambassador Yu looked sick. So everything was theater? The welcome, the negotiations, Prince Velith's apparent help? I don't think Prince Velith is part of it, Daehyun said quickly. His reactions were genuine. I'd stake my career on that. But he could have been manipulated too, Shin pointed out, used as a tool without his knowledge. Before they could discuss further, a request came through. Prince Velith wanted to meet with Daehyun privately. Immediately. It's a trap, Shin said. Everything is a trap, Daehyun replied. I'm going anyway. He met Prince Velith in a garden that floated above the city, held aloft by technology Daehyun didn't understand. The prince stood at the edge, looking down at the alien landscape below. His skin patterns flickered erratically. I know about the conspiracy, Velith said without turning around. I've known for weeks. I heard it in the council members' thoughts. Then why didn't you warn us more directly? Because I'm part of the problem, Velith said bitterly. He finally turned to face Daehyun. My family has been using my telepathic abilities for intelligence gathering since I was a child. Every diplomatic meeting, every negotiation, every treaty, I was there, reading thoughts, reporting back. I thought I was serving my empire honorably. But now you know different. Now I understand I was being used, Velith said. And worse, I was complicit in using others. Every species that joined the consortium while I was reading minds, they never had a real chance at fair terms. We knew their bottom lines, their fears, their secrets. We exploited all of it. Daehyun watched the prince carefully. So what changed? Why help us? Because you showed me silence, Velith said simply. For the first time in my life, I experienced what it's like to not know, to be uncertain, and I realized that my whole life has been a prison. I've never had a genuine relationship, never been trusted, never trusted anyone else. All because of this ability I was born with. Your people must value your ability enormously. They do, which is why what I'm about to propose will make me a traitor. Prince Velith moved closer. I want to expose the conspiracy publicly. Tell the entire consortium what I've heard in the council members' thoughts. The manipulation, the coordinated efforts to control new species, the exploitation. Daehyun felt his heart race. That would be devastating. For you, for your family, for your entire political position. Yes, Velith agreed. But it might give humanity a fair chance, and it might free me from this role I've been trapped in. What do you need from me? Asylum on Earth, Velith said. After I expose the conspiracy, I won't be able to return home. Your Dr. Choi has shown me that humans might be able to help me control my telepathy. I want to continue that work. I want to learn how to be someone who doesn't always know everything. Daehyun considered carefully. I'll need to discuss this with Ambassador Yu. This is bigger than I can decide alone. Of course, but decide quickly. The vote happens in 6 hours. The emergency delegation meeting was intense. Ambassador Yu was skeptical. Commander Shin was outright hostile to the idea of trusting an alien prince. But Dr. Choi and Daehyun argued that Prince Violet's offer was genuine. He's risking everything, Daehyun said. His position, his family, his entire future. That's not the action of someone playing games. Unless it's an extremely sophisticated game, Shin countered. I've been working with him, Dr. Choi said. I've seen his reactions when he experiences mental silence. The relief, the joy, the vulnerability. That can't be faked. Ambassador Yu made the decision. We accept his help and offer asylum, but we prepare for betrayal. Commander Shin, have extraction protocols ready? If this goes wrong, we get out fast. Prince Violet's plan was risky. During the final council session, he would request the right to perform a truth reading, an ancient Velen ceremony where a telepath publicly shares the thoughts they've read from others. It was rarely used in modern times, considered too invasive and politically dangerous. But if the council allowed it, Prince Velith would expose everything. The grand amphitheater filled again. The 12 council species took their positions. The human delegation sat in the petitioners section, waiting. Prince Velith stood with his people, his expression calm. High Magistrate Corvin called the session to order. We gather to vote on Earth's petition for consortium membership. Before the vote, are there any final statements? Prince Velith stood. I request the right of truth reading. The amphitheater erupted in shocked murmurs. Truth readings were ancient tradition, invoked maybe once every 100 years. Several council members immediately objected, but Corvin, whose compound eyes saw patterns others missed, allowed it. The right is granted. Proceed, Prince Velith. What happened next was extraordinary. Prince Velith stood in the center of the amphitheater and began speaking the thoughts he'd heard over the past weeks. He exposed the Thresik Collective's plans to demand Earth's asteroid resources. He revealed the Morlian Confederacy's scheme to steal human genetic material. He shared the Velen Empire's own conspiracy to position permanent military advisors on Earth. With each revelation, different species erupted in protests. Some claimed he was lying. Others demanded he stop. But Corvin allowed him to continue. Finally, Prince Velith shared something even more damaging. He revealed that this exploitation wasn't unique to Earth. Multiple species in the consortium had been manipulated during their admission process. The Council had been using his telepathic abilities for decades to maintain power imbalances. The amphitheater descended into chaos. But before the implications could fully sink in, a new voice cut through the noise. Nephew, you've said enough. A Velen woman stood up from the visiting delegation section. She was older than Prince Velith, her skin patterns more complex and elegant. Daehyun saw the family resemblance immediately. Counselor Ren, Prince Velith said, his voice tight. I didn't know you were here. I wouldn't miss your performance, Ren said coldly. She walked down to the amphitheater floor. But you've made a crucial mistake. You assumed you were the only deep-thought telepath in our family. The air seemed to freeze. Prince Velith's expression shifted from determination to horror. That's right, Counselor Ren said. I have the same ability you do, and I've been listening to your thoughts for weeks. I know about your cooperation with the humans. I know about your plans for asylum. I know about your desire to escape your responsibilities. She turned to address the council. Prince Velith has been compromised by human cognitive manipulation. They've used their deceptive abilities to turn him against his own people. Everything he said today should be considered suspect. That's not true, Daehyun shouted, standing up. Isn't it? Ren looked at him with those black eyes. I've heard your thoughts too, Technician Kang. I know you trained yourself to deceive telepaths. I know your entire delegation planned this scenario. You used my nephew as a tool. The council members were confused now, uncertain who to believe. Ambassador Yu stood up, trying to regain control of the situation. But Councillor Ren wasn't finished. I propose an immediate vote, not just on Earth's membership, but on whether to quarantine humanity entirely. They've proven themselves too dangerous, too deceptive, too willing to manipulate others. They've corrupted a Velen prince. What might they do if given full access to our civilization? High Magistrate Corvin raised his appendages for silence. The council will recess for 1 hour to consider these developments. Then we vote. The human delegation was escorted from the amphitheater. They gathered in their quarters, stunned by how quickly everything had collapsed. "We're finished," Ambassador Yu said quietly. Even if Violet exposed real conspiracies, his aunt just made us look like the manipulators. They'll vote to quarantine us now. "We need to leave," Commander Shin said. "Get to the ship before they make it official." "And abandon Prince Violet?" Dr. Choi asked. "He played his gambit and lost," Shin said harshly. "We can't save him." Daehyun wasn't listening. He was thinking about Counselor Ren, about her revelation that she was also a deep-thought telepath. Something about her performance bothered him. "She knew about the plan," he said slowly. "She knew everything. So why let it get this far? Why not stop Violet before he made the revelations public?" Dr. Choi's eyes widened. Because she wanted him to. The revelation served her purposes somehow. Or, Ambassador Yu said, a new light in her eyes, she wanted the chaos, wanted the council off balance. But why? The answer came from an unexpected source. Prince Violet himself appeared at their door, accompanied by guards. But he was smiling. "My aunt just made a critical mistake," he said. "She played her hand too early. And now, I know exactly how to use it." Prince Velith entered the human quarters with an urgency that made everyone alert. The guards who had accompanied him waited outside, which meant he had some freedom still. But for how long? "Your aunt tried to destroy your credibility," Ambassador Yu said. "How is that a mistake?" "Because she revealed herself," Vilith explained. "For decades, she's kept her deep-thought telepathy secret. It was her advantage in politics. Everyone knew I was the only one, so they watched me. No one suspected her. Now, everyone knows. And they'll start questioning every negotiation she was ever part of, every treaty she influenced." "That still doesn't help us," Commander Shin said. "The council is voting in 30 minutes. You exposed the conspiracies, but your aunt made it look like we manipulated you. We're going to be rejected, possibly quarantined." "Not if we turn the situation around," Vilith said. He looked at Daehyun. "You need to do what you did during the trial, but bigger. Much bigger." "What do you mean?" Daehyun asked. "Create mental chaos," Vilith said. "But not just you, all of you. Every human in this delegation. Fill the amphitheater with contradictory thoughts, layered beliefs, cognitive noise so intense that every telepath in the room becomes overwhelmed." Dr. Choi understood immediately. "You want us to weaponize our cognitive flexibility. Show them that human mental complexity isn't just a parlor trick. It's a defensive capability." "More than that," Vilith said. "Show them that you can control it, that you can turn it on and off. Demonstrate that humans choose when to be transparent and when to be opaque. That makes you powerful but not uncontrollable." "And what do we say while we're doing this?" Ambassador Yu asked. "The truth," Vilith replied. "That humanity doesn't want to be another subjugated species. That you'll accept fair membership terms but not exploitation. That you're willing to walk away rather than accept slavery disguised as alliance." Li Jiwan, the young xenolinguist, spoke up. "This is incredibly risky. If we overwhelm the telepaths, they might see it as an attack." "They already see you as a threat," Vailith pointed out. "This way, you control the narrative. You show strength, not deception." Ambassador Yu looked around at her team. "Everyone capable of the cognitive layering techniques Dr. Choi taught, be ready to use them. Everyone else, support the message. We're going to make the boldest move in Earth's diplomatic history." They returned to the grand amphitheater. The alien crowd was larger now, word having spread about the dramatic revelations. The council members looked tense. Counselor Ren sat with the Velen delegation, her expression confident. High Magistrate Corvin called the session to order. "We will now proceed with the vote on Earth's membership and the additional question of quarantine. But first, Earth's delegation has requested to make a final statement. Ambassador Yu stood and walked to the center of the amphitheater. Daehyun, Dr. Choi, and 20 other humans followed her. They formed a circle, facing outward toward the council and the watching aliens. "We've heard the accusations against us," Yu began, "that we're deceptive, manipulative, dangerous. And I won't lie, all of that is true. Humans can deceive even ourselves. We can hold contradictory beliefs. We can imagine realities that don't exist and believe in them so completely that even the most powerful telepaths are fooled." The amphitheater was silent, listening. "But here's what you don't understand," Yu continued. "This ability isn't a weakness or a trick. It's a fundamental part of how human consciousness works, and we can demonstrate it right now." She nodded to Dr. Choi, who began the technique. One by one, the humans in the circle started the cognitive layering. They built false memories, contradictory thoughts, elaborate mental scenarios. Each human created their own unique pattern of mental noise. The effect was immediate. Telepaths throughout the amphitheater began to react. Some clutched their heads. Others backed away. The mental static generated by 30 humans thinking in layered, contradictory patterns was overwhelming to species evolved for telepathic clarity. Even Counselor Ren looked uncomfortable. "This is what human minds do naturally," Ambassador Yu said, her own thoughts adding to the chaos. "Imagine what we could do if we tried. Imagine if we sent diplomats trained to maximize this effect. You couldn't read us. You couldn't predict us. You couldn't control us through telepathy." She paused, and at her signal, every human stopped simultaneously. The mental noise vanished instantly. The telepaths in the amphitheater gasped at the sudden silence. "But we don't want to be your enemy," Yu said. "We want to be your ally. We can control this ability. We can choose when to be transparent and when to shield ourselves. What we won't accept is exploitation disguised as membership." Daehyun stepped forward, adding his voice. "Prince Violet exposed real conspiracies today, species that wanted to trap us in unfair terms. But here's the thing. We don't blame you for being cautious. We're new, unknown, potentially disruptive to your careful political balance. So here's our proposal," Ambassador Yu said. "Give us probationary membership, limited voting rights but full cultural exchange. Let us prove ourselves over time. If we're as dangerous as you fear, you can revoke the membership. If we're as valuable as we claim, we become full members. And if you try to exploit us," Dr. Choi added, "you'll discover that cognitive chaos is just the beginning of what human minds can do." The amphitheater buzzed with discussion. High Magistrate Corvin conferred with other council members. Finally, he spoke. "Earth's demonstration was educational. I cannot read thoughts, but I can read bioelectric patterns. And what I observed was remarkable. The humans were telling the truth while generating deception, being honest about their capacity for dishonesty. This paradox is unique." He turned to Counselor Ren. "You accuse the humans of manipulating Prince Violet. But your nephew made his choices freely, driven by personal desires we all heard articulated. The humans offered him something he wanted, training in mental silence. That's cooperation, not manipulation." Ren started to object, but Corvin continued. "More importantly, Prince Violet's revelations about exploitation cannot be ignored. Even if his methods were unorthodox, the concerns he raised are legitimate. This council has been too comfortable using telepathic advantages. Perhaps humanity's cognitive opacity is exactly what we need. A species we cannot read, forcing us to negotiate honestly rather than rely on mental surveillance." "You cannot be serious," Ren protested. "They're dangerous." "Yes," Corvin agreed, "but so is every species when threatened. The question is whether their danger is manageable and their value worth the risk." He raised his appendages. "I propose a modified admission, probationary membership for 10 cycles. Earth gains cultural exchange rights, limited trade access, and 1 advisory vote on council matters. After 10 cycles, we evaluate their contributions and grant full membership or revoke the arrangement." "This is unprecedented," one of the Morlian counselors said. "These are unprecedented circumstances," Corvin replied. "All in favor?" The vote was close, but it passed. 7 species in favor, 4 against, 1 abstaining. Earth had won probationary membership. The human delegation stood in stunned silence for a moment. Then Commander Shin allowed himself a small smile. Ambassador Yu actually laughed. They had done it. But the moment was interrupted by Counselor Rian. She stood and pointed at Prince Violet. My nephew has committed treason against the Velen Empire. He exposed state secrets. He must face justice. Prince Violet stood calmly. I formally request asylum with the human delegation, as previously arranged. Asylum? Ren's skin patterns flared with anger. You would abandon your people for these aliens? I would abandon a role I never wanted, Violet said quietly. I've spent my entire life as a tool, reading thoughts for others' benefit. The humans showed me another way, a way to have privacy even in my own mind. I choose that over imperial duty. The council has no authority over internal Velen matters, one of the other council members pointed out. If Prince Violet requests asylum and Earth grants it, that's between those parties. Ambassador Yu stepped forward. Earth formally grants asylum to Prince Violet. He will be under our protection. Counselor Ren looked like she might challenge this further, but High Magistrate Corvin intervened. The matter is settled. This council session is concluded. The following days were a blur of paperwork, negotiations, and preparation for departure. The human delegation would return to Earth as the first species to gain even limited access to the consortium. It wasn't the full victory they'd hoped for, but it was real progress. Prince Villith spent his time working with Dr. Choi, continuing his training in mental silence. He was getting better at it, achieving longer periods of telepathic quiet. The relief on his face during these moments was profound. On their last night on Vethera Prime, Daehyun found Violet standing on a balcony watching the alien city lights. Do you regret it? Daehyun asked. Leaving your home? Violet was quiet for a moment. I regret that it was necessary. But no, I don't regret the choice. For the first time in my life, I have hope. Hope that I might develop real relationships. Hope that I might experience genuine surprise. Hope that I might not know everything about everyone I meet. Earth isn't perfect, Daehyun warned. We have our own problems. I know, Villith said. I've read enough human thoughts to understand your world's complexities, but that's exactly why I'm coming. Complexity, uncertainty, the possibility of being wrong. That's what I want. You know, Daehyun said, when you first told me you could hear my thoughts, I was terrified. I felt violated, vulnerable. But now I think I understand what you were going through. We were both trapped. You by knowing too much, me by the fear of being known. And now? Villith asked. Now we're both free, Daehyun said. You're learning to not listen. I'm learning that being heard isn't always dangerous. 3 months later, the transport ship carrying the human delegation and their new alien ally approached Earth. News of the probationary membership had already reached home. There were celebrations, debates, concerns, and questions. But overall, humanity felt hope. Daehyun stood in the observation deck with Dr. Choi, watching Earth grow larger in the viewport. Prince Violet sat nearby in meditation, practicing his mental silence techniques. Do you think we'll succeed in the consortium? Dr. Choi asked. Daehyun considered the question. I think we already have. We showed them something they'd never seen before. We taught the galaxy's most powerful telepath how to stop listening. If we can do that, we can accomplish anything. Prince Violet opened his eyes and joined them at the viewport. His skin patterns flickered with what Daehyun had learned to recognize as contentment. Can you hear our thoughts right now? Daehyun asked. Villith smiled. A little, but I'm learning to tune them out, to focus on what's said aloud instead of what's thought silently. It's strange and wonderful. Welcome to being human, Dr. Choi said with a smile. We spend half our lives not knowing what people really think. I'm looking forward to it, Villith said. As Earth filled the viewport, Daehyun allowed himself a private thought, one he knew Villith might or might not hear, depending on his control. We didn't conquer the galaxy with strength. We did it by teaching them the value of silence, by showing them that not knowing can be more powerful than knowing everything. That uncertainty is a gift, not a curse. And in the quiet space where thoughts lived, Daehyun felt something he'd never experienced before: true privacy. Not because of shields or technology, but because Prince Violet had chosen not to listen, had given him the gift of uncertain communication. It was a small thing, perhaps, but it represented something larger: a bridge between two entirely different kinds of consciousness, a proof that understanding didn't require transparency. That trust could exist even when thoughts remained private. The ship descended toward Earth, carrying humans who had changed the galaxy not through conquest or superior technology, but through a simple demonstration that the ability to lie to yourself, to imagine impossible things, to believe contradictions, that uniquely human cognitive chaos, was not a weakness to be ashamed of, but a strength to be celebrated. In a universe full of telepaths who always knew the truth, humans had become valuable precisely because they could embrace uncertainty. And in teaching others how to not know, they had secured humanity's place among the stars. The Meridian Dawn landed to crowds of celebrating humans. Daehyun stepped onto Earth's soil for the first time in 7 months. Beside him, Prince Villith took his first breath of Earth's atmosphere, experiencing a world where his telepathic abilities wouldn't be constantly triggered by billions of minds. "How does it feel?" Daehyun asked. Prince Violet closed his eyes, focusing on the silence he'd learned to create in his own mind. When he opened them, his expression was one of pure peace. "It feels like freedom," he said simply. And in that moment, both human and alien understood that they had given each other something precious. Humans had gained access to the stars. Violet had gained the ability to be alone with his own thoughts. It was, Daehyun reflected, the most human kind of victory imaginable. Not through domination, but through exchange. Not by being stronger, but by being different. Not by having all the answers, but by teaching others the value of questions. The story of how Earth joined the Galactic Consortium would be told for generations. But the part that mattered most, the part that would echo through history, wasn't about politics or trials or demonstrations of power. It was about a human technician and an alien prince who taught each other that silence. That beautiful uncertainty of not knowing what someone else is thinking could be the foundation of genuine connection. In a galaxy that prized transparency, Earth had won by embracing mystery, and in doing so, had shown the stars something they'd forgotten: that the space between minds, that gap of uncertainty and imagination, was where true understanding could grow. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in history, that uncertainty felt like a promise rather than a threat.